very closely with Comptroller Scott Stringer to make sure when they break their agreements that we take them to court. Because you know what? We start taking them to court on them violating their agreements, that's going to change things right away. And another thing I want to do, as it relates to the slum landlords. Everyone here read, I'm going to go a little off topic, but it's somewhat related. Everyone here read when those two young girls were killed because of a coolant leak of a radiator earlier this year in the South Bronx. It was scatter site homeless shelter housing. Because we subsidize, we give the landlords big tax breaks to take in these people that's well above market rate. That's why they do it, because they pay the politicians. The politicians write the laws that allow them to be in there. We need to get rid of scatter site housing. Because scatter site housing, we house them in slum conditions, and the only people making out on it are the big landlords. And where's that money come back into? The political system. It's all related, folks.
Thank you.
I'm going to be honest with you. Adolfo Carrion was HUD's secretary, right? The borough president and the community boards are nominated. The community boards are nominated by the borough president and the city council. This is corruption 101. Let's be honest. Adolfo Carrion came back to the Bronx not to fix the Bronx. He came to do business and bring that money from the federal level over. $1.7 million. Now, if you're a landlord, you got a building, right? And you're charging $1,200 rent, but if you go to DHS with $1.7 billion and they're offering you $2,200 as a landlord, you're gonna take the money. You're gonna pay off the borough president, you're going to change the city, the community board, because the community board is in with the whole thing. Let's be honest, people. Let's not bullshit the voters, the working class. Let's be honest. I'm sorry. I'm the only person to be transparent. We're adults. There's no little kids here. The developers are going to run this. The Bronx is looking better, but it's only looking better because we're doing scattered sites, because we're helping the homeless, because we're helping people with HIV/AIDS. You know how much a HASA voucher is paying for an apartment? $2,700 for one bedroom. Let's be honest, the Bronx is a welfare borough. But, you know, we still have the 13th district that's still middle class, right? Yeah. People are working, but we don't want that. So you're going to need somebody like a teacher like myself to really look through it and read and not be scared to go to court and tell the borough president, let's go, homie, right? Let's fight, right? And let's fight this. I'll take you to court. I represent this community board. I'm not being dishonest. I know what it is. The Bronx is what it is. If we take the $1.7 million out, the buildings become empty.
Thank you.
Who's going to pay the rent? Let's be real. Let's be real.
Okay. So the next question, we'll start with Mr. Simontelli.
Yes.
Okay, no, sorry, John.
I'm sorry, the Bronx came out of me. I sounded like a Bronx guy for a second, right? I'm sorry.
So,
Not you, because I know where you're from.
order, please. So Mr. Doyle will be the first respondent, candidate to respond. What steps would you take to increase the availability of vocational programs to prepare non-college bound youth for high-paying jobs in the trades or technology-based industries?
Great question, and I think we're probably all going to be in total agreement on this. There needs to be a greater investment in vocational schools, and we need to start partnering those with the unions, because if we can create good middle-class union jobs, those are a pathway towards a better life for a lot of people. And frankly, we were talking about this, funny, it came up at the last debate. My competitor, who's not here tonight, Mr. Serini, he's the Republican nominee. He's about 15 years older than I am. When he went to Lehman High School, there was a great electrical program. A lot of local 3 workers would go through the electrical program at Lehman and then be able to start on the job after high school and do the electrical in this building. You don't need a college education to do that. But unfortunately, the program got cut over the years when Lehman became a smaller school, which is a whole other thing I'd love to get into when I'm not on the 90-second clock. And as a result of that, they lost the program. By the time I could go to Lehman for that program, it was gone. And now, as a result, I kind of consider it my personal mission, if I'm fortunate enough in this respect, to try to bring it back so the kid in the next 15 years can do something like that. We need a whole reshift of education policy, and let's also be honest here, frankly. And this is bigger than anyone on this stage, and no one here's the culprit of this. But we are subsidizing private colleges and many other things where we're pushing people into these programs because people are seeing dollar signs and profit centers. And that's not right either. And we need to get back to basics. And again, there needs to be vocational training. We need to be able to teach kids on the jobs of the future. We need a technical high school. I know Mayor Bloomberg tried very hard to bring one here. It's something I'm very willing to have discussions on how to move that forward. We need to start teaching the kids coding in high school. Yeah. Listen, I love trigonometry and algebra. That's a lie. I'm being sarcastic. But the jobs of the future are in coding. Those are where the jobs are. We need to start training the kids for where the jobs are. So if they choose not to go to college, and we also have to be better to ourselves here and not be snobs and remove the stigma that everyone needs to go to college. There's a perfectly honorable profession to not go to college and get yourself on your own feet. And there's something honest about collecting an honest day paid for an honest day work. And frankly, that's where we need to focus, is back on vocational training. It's a priority of mine if I get in there. As is keeping on time is also my priority.
I'm sorry that the South Bronx came out of me. But let's be honest. I don't care if they got charter schools. You know what? Charter schools are working. There's a reason why those schools are working. And you know what? My daughter went to a charter school. She's an A1 student. I couldn't afford that education, to be honest with you. She studied ballet, and now she's a professional ballet dancer. You know why? Because Jeff Klein, the borough president, and all of those politicians that you worked for and that you knew all sold the community out. When I went to Stevenson High School, there was a computer-based program. There was a football team. There was a basketball team. There was a nursing program at Dodge High School. Gone. The automotive in Stevenson, gone. The vocational department, everything has been gone. Why? The same old politics. The same old bullshit. Let's be honest. We hire these politicians, they're gone. They're going to talk the talk, they're going to dance the dance, and they're going to keep on walking. They're not going to do anything. They're not going to bring music programs, drama programs. I played in the jazz band. I was the conductor of the orchestra. I played the sax, the flute, the drums. Why? Because they were there. They were part of the curriculum in high school. You and I know that the Bronx, even though it was poor and burning, it had good things. If you wanted to learn, you wanted to go to school, you could. But we don't have those programs. We threw our God out of the school. And we went to hell. And now the developers are going to build it up, but we're still not doing anything for the children of this community. And yet the charter schools are doing their thing because they found a loophole. And if they're being more successful without the unions, then by all means, something is working. Let's get those people and bring them into the Board of Education and let them run the Board of Education. Let's merge the departments. Why is it that those departments are working and the Board of Education is failing? And all the money that they get. Why is it that the State Department writes a curriculum? One last thing. Why is it that the State Department writes the curriculum, but when your kid goes to school, his textbook doesn't match the curriculum? I know because I was a teacher. And the $75 textbook is garbage. And the $10 textbook that I bought on my own was good. I'm sorry, but let's be real about it. I think maybe we need a minute and 30 seconds for this.
You may just.
Let's be real.
You said that we're going to adopt it 30 seconds.
Okay.
I'll
Mr.
take it.
Simmons-Philly?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Although I forgive you, Mr. Ortiz,
Thank you, Councilman.
I forgive you for the X over my name here. I just noticed you put a big X.
I did.
All right? But we all know why vocational courses were removed from high school. They were many years ago. You guys remember, especially if you're over 40 years old, you remember. And what was the argument? The argument came out, said, why is my child learning to be a plumber, a carpenter, and an electrician, while other children in Manhattan are being taught to become doctors and lawyers? So what happened? Let's get rid of it. We got to make it equal. That was the logic. That was the progressive thinking, the modern thinking. Everyone has the same shot. That means everyone has the same shot for failing. like it or not. And unfortunately, would I like to have my kids to become doctors and lawyers? Of course. I think everyone here would like to have a better life for their children. I know I would. I don't want anyone to have the same life I had. I want them to have a better life. Every parent wants that for their child. Unfortunately, that's not the reality. We have $22,000 a year is spent. The state spends on a child. $22,000. It's a lot of money for every child. We need to divert some of that money. We need to take it away from the UFT. I said it the other night at the other debate. Unfortunately, your children become pawns, political pawns of the political system. They're being used. Do you know what a teacher makes nowadays? Tenure teacher. Over $100,000. So it's costly. Education is costly. Our children, the mayor's failed on it. We need to take it away. I don't believe mayor control. I'd rather have the state control our education system. The mayor of New York City has failed our school system.
Okay, wait, Mr. Doyle, is
Yeah.
there an issue?
Yeah, just my friend here, and he's my friend. He did refer to me in one of his
Okay,
comments, I would
so
just
you-
like to address.
Okay.
Yep. Again, I assume everyone here has worked before in their lives, and I assume that when you had a boss, you might not have agreed 100% with everything they thought. So Senator Klein is not on the ballot this year, I'm on the ballot, and I'd just like to speak a little about the education issue, because I don't want to be tarred with that. Again, how did the schools and how did this all break down with vocational schools? It was when we created the smaller schools. That's when they sucked the resources out. That's when the bands got out and the sports programs and the vocational training. That's when that happened. What went in? The charter schools. Why did they go in? They started giving to the politicians. Guys, this has all been reported on. This is not John Doyle pontificating. You know this. And listen, people want to hear I want to bash labor. Again, a lot of vocational jobs go into good labor-paying jobs, frankly. I think that's unfortunate. But listen, the labor unions, they exist in Westchester. Westchester has some of the best schools in the country. The issue is not the labor unions, guys. The issue is the breakdown of the family, one, which is something that the liberals never want to mention. And two, is frankly, that the state underfunds the city $4 billion, which not only do the conservatives not want to talk about, but the state officials won't even acknowledge. Those are the issues here, friends. Let's keep our eye on the prize of what the issue is and not get distracted by this, that, and the third. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
Can I respond to that? Real quick. I think racism and discrimination is what happened. To be honest with you. Racism and discrimination. Our kids started getting certifications and competing against other people from upstate. If you look at the people that are working in the inner city, the majority of them coming in from upstate. But if they don't have the certifications in the city, you can't compete with them. So yeah, we destroyed the Board of Education because we systematically want to destroy the children from the neighborhood. We don't want them to compete with anybody else. All right, so yeah, the vocational schools were thrown out. So now you can't get the certifications, right? So let's think about racism and discrimination in the Bronx, whether you like it or not. No matter where you live, there is racism and discrimination, especially in your neighborhood.
Are
Thank
you
you.
talking to me?
Yes,
do you know where I live?
yes.
Wait a minute, wait.
He addressed me.
No, I'm not part of that. That's not part of that. I'm sorry. You have to talk to them afterwards.
Thank you.
Okay. No. I think it's no, it's 8-something, but we have to maintain decorum. Okay? No, I'm sorry. Our community will be respected. We have a format and we're going to follow that.
He just said I should leave.
Okay, no.
No,
We're not asking you to
but
leave. We're
Thank
not.
you.
This is for everyone.
I think
Okay,
it-
stop. We will not have this. We will not have it. Now, the next person is Mr. Doyle, right? Are you next?
Yes.
Okay. Or Mr. Ortiz?
I'm actually next.
Okay, all right, so let's have another question, okay? All right, what policies can be implemented to strengthen the working and middle classes in Venice?
Before I touch that, I wanted to just touch a little bit about my other question in reference to DHS. landlords and rental subsidies. Just for information purposes, landlords, when they rent for vouchers and programs, they get an extra $1,000 bonus for rental, and an additional 15%. So I just want to mention that. But in reference to the middle class of Van Ness, to strengthen jobs, that's what we need in this country. Does government create jobs? Absolutely not. How could they? Government is like bloodsuckers. You know, they just want to suck your blood. They don't give anything back. And unfortunately, we need to leave it to the private sector. We need to assist them, small mom and pops. We need to assist the corporations. We need to address that and give them opportunities to not to be fined, just like this year. This budget, $84 billion budget, de Blasio. He hasn't increased police, fire, sanitation. If you notice, nobody picked up. I don't know, my garbage wasn't picked up. It's still out there today. All right, 3 days later. Sanitation wasn't hired. I hope not. Other services are not being provided. And you know what the mayor did? He hired the only additional increase of agency, traffic agents. 500 new traffic agents. So if you have a car, folks, just keep that in mind. The city is going to pay for that 500 new traffic agents, additional uniform. The only increase in this year's budget. Shameful. Every city councilman approved it. Present city councilman approved it here. And I just wanted to let you know about the middle class and jobs. I think Mr. Doyle or Mr. Ortiz touched, I think it was Ortiz who touched on it. The city does not make the laws to supersede the state laws. The state laws are imposed upon the city. Up in Albany has to be changed. The Assembly and the Senate must be changed up there before we can have an effect on our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question?
What policies can be implemented to strengthen the working and middle classes in Venice?
Sure. There's a lot that can be done, frankly. Again, the best pathway into the middle class is a union job. While union jobs are evaporating throughout the country, they're not in the city of New York and in the state of New York. That's because we have strong labor laws. And I would encourage you all to protect them by voting against the Constitutional Convention, because as we've seen in other states, when we open up the process, big money comes in and they try to take away our union jobs, and I would encourage you to fight against that. The middle class is really endangered throughout our district, throughout our city, but possibly nowhere more so than Van Nest. Because you know what? Once that Metro North train comes in, your property value is going to go high, sky high, and you guys are going to be hot commodities. And let me tell you something. There's an old expression in government. Kenny Augusto says it, and I've often repeated it on the campaign trail. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And let's be real here. Let's be real here. Let's be real. There's a reason developers are taking an interest in this race. Again, guys, and let's be honest here also. And again, I'm not going to personally attack anybody, but from a factual standpoint, there is one candidate in this race who has talked about upzoning parts of Van Nest. That's an unpleasant fact that people don't want to address. I'm fine with that. But that's something that needs to be dealt with as well. And frankly, if we upzone, if we develop these things, the median income is going to go sky high. A lot of people here are going to be priced out of their homes. And again, rent regulations, we're bleeding out thousands of rent-regulated apartments each and every year. The landlords in the real estate lobby, they don't pay my campaign. I don't have to toe their line. I can be independent. Frankly, we need more people in government who are independent. Final thing I think we should do, we need a land bank, because all these foreclosed homes, I want the city to take a more proactive role and develop them into 1- and 2-family homes. Then let's try to do housing more that way, in consistence with the zoning. If you want to do affordable housing, that's fine, do it consistent with our zoning. Let's preserve what's made Van Nest so special, and let's preserve what's frankly made a lot of neighborhoods in this district so special. So it's a multi-pronged approach. It's not easy to get to. We need good union jobs, we need to protect our rent-regulated apartments, and we need to fight these developers and gentrification at every turn, because if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the middle class has to have an intellectual capitalism that involves common sense. We need to be creative. We need to have imagination. We need to have leadership. we need to analyze the issues and the problems. We need to write a script, write a book, and perhaps maybe do science in order to participate in the future within the middle class. Now, I got that from a scientist, and I listened to it 1,000 times, and it made a lot of sense. Old school middle class work is going out the door, right? And we're struggling. The middle class worker is struggling. Our taxes are high. So we need to find new creative ways in order to be progressive. Use our minds, our creativity. Like when I built my skate park in 1988. If you go to Yankee Stadium, I built a skate park. That park is now 30 years old. But that recreation program developed hundreds of kids, not only in New York City, but in the tri-state. And children from all over the world came to my skate park just a bike ride. That was networking. And we developed networking skills. And can I tell you, 30 years later, we're still good friends. A lot of the kids that came into the neighborhood stood in the neighborhood, developed the neighborhood. I walked away from that program, and that program is still in existence. Because I was creative, because my friends had imaginations, because we stopped doing drugs. And that's what we need. Intellectual capitalism. Like Mr. Newspaper Man here that writes a column all the time about politics. And is surviving and doing very well. Right, Mr. President?
Thank you. Next question.
You like that, right?
I like you, you know that.
You know you love me.
Okay, this is who is next up on the?
Now, Mr.
Ortiz. No, Editor, okay.
I just went, but I'll go again.
I would be careful with the shell game, you know.
Tell me. I love it.
Okay, this is another economic question. This is specific to Van Ness. What ideas do you have to increase incentives for small business development from White Plains Road to East 180th Street?
Repeat that question again, I'm sorry.
To
What
increase the
ideas
180?
do you have to increase incentives for small businesses, small business development from White Plains Road to East 180th Street on Morris Park Avenue?
On Morris Park
Yes,
Avenue.
yes, sorry about that. Thank you,
Okay.
Joan.
Well, you know, we have a mixture of homes. How many actual storefronts do we have between here and, let's say, all the way down to the train station?
It's a small amount, but
A
there's.
small amount, right? Everything is still residential. I don't see that much traffic there economically. I don't know if there's going to be much growth. I think there's going to be more residential growth in those areas. I think between White Plains and in this block, let's say up to this block, I mean, very busy area. It's concentration. People come here from all over the place, and we have a great. My brother used to work at the pharmacy there for Victor's for years, many years ago. It's been here what, 30 years?
More.
Yeah, more. And so the whole area has always been. This has been the hub. This has been the hub. These two blocks have actually been the hub for this part of the area. And I think we could help them. I'm against the business improvement district, the bid that's being proposed. I've been to the hearings. I testified again. I'm the only candidate against them, solely based because it's a 6% tax, and it's an additional 6% tax on a bid that's only going to benefit upper part of the district instead of this area for 6%. Who's going to pay for the 6%? The milk increases. The seniors are going to pay for it. The bread will increase. The seniors are going to pay for it in this area. It does not help a 6% imposed tax on small businesses. We could do it better. The services are duplicated. It should be there. They're already paying enough taxes on it, and that's what we need. We need to keep them open. If we imagine at night, we need to give incentives. I think more of a tax write-off on the small businesses. We need to empower the small businesses. We give all these big developers big money. We actually subsidize development in Corp City, the other side, Yankee Stadium. Who do you think paid for it? They did? Stop it. All the politician friends paid it. And on top of that, the taxpayers paid for that. So I think we need to give small, the end question is, we need to impose an ability for them to do tax reduction and empower the small mom and pop stores. Thank you.
John Doyle.
Thank you for the question, and I'm the only person on this panel, even when our other colleague was here, who's actually worked on small business empowerment issues in Van Nest. I was central in getting the bank, Cross County Federal Savings Bank, into this neighborhood, doing a banking development district. I helped write the proposal. I went through the census tracts. I proved this was an underbanked community. I proved that there were more seniors living in this community than many others. I proved that most of those seniors didn't have cars. You need somebody who can do that granular level research and then present the most effective case. Now, I didn't present the case of my own. We had Jeff Klein, who's very well spoken. He did that, actually. But I gathered the material, and everyone was well known that I was very involved and integral in that process. Where do we go from here? Because that has not solved all the problems, nor was it intended to, but it was supposed to shine a light on Van Nest to show that after we lost the post office and after we lost the school, that Van Nest is still alive. And I think this group was a bright, shining light as well. First thing we need to do is we need to pass the Small Business Jobs Survival Act. The thing, again, I bring it all back because this is what's killing this city. This city's a one industry town and it's run by real estate. And frankly, real estate, a lot of these building owners, if they can claim, that the storefront is vacant, it's a write-off on their taxes. It shouldn't be that way. So if you're a small business owner, they'll just keep jacking your rent. There is no commercial rent control. That's why we lose things like Kohl's on the northern side of Morris Park. That's what actually, Manja Bedroom. Yeah. No, it wasn't that one. It was Mamma Mia's, or what was it? Mamma Mia's. That's where they went out. Again, they couldn't survive. Most small businesses fail in the first year. And when you have a roller coaster with your rent, what's the incentive to stay? The landlords know that if you're a small business, location, location, location. And they have you over a barrel. And frankly, I think we need to look into empire zones and reduce taxes in certain economic depressed areas. I think White Plains Road would be a good candidate for that. Also, I think, and again, I don't just, if someone's religious here, it's not a personal attack on religion, but we need to look into these storefront churches that are open one day a week that do nothing for the economic vitality of the area. I want to bring the Doe Fund here. And last thing, in less than 10 seconds, is I would like to work with our state electeds, and I'll work very closely with Mark because he'll still be up in Albany after I win this race, to make sure that we're doing a rebate for small business owners. So if you're a 24-hour store, if you close between the hours of 2 and 6, let's give them a utility rebate. Let's close those stores because that's not positive economic growth we need. That's hurting the neighborhood. I'm sorry. I'll be more on time next time. There are only 3 of us
That's
now.
what you said before.
I know.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm being substantive.
ladies and gentlemen, our president came to the Bronx, and he, ladies and gentlemen, our president came to the Bronx and he got free land, Droznik, golf course, 18 holes, thanks to the community board, right? And he didn't pay any taxes for 20 years, right? Why couldn't we put there some type of science tech, medical tech, environmental tech, a nutritional tech programs? Hunts Point was an industrial area. Droznik could have been an industrial area. Why don't we build electrical cars in the Bronx? And why don't we sell them to the Bronxites at a fraction of the price to make them? Why don't we use the technologies in our environment and think big, right? We become the leaders in building electrical cars. The business will boom. And little parts for different parts of cars or whatever it is that we need can become the industry of the Bronx. But I'm thinking big. And some of the old school people here may be looking at me, maybe saying, hey, it's right. Our parents worked at Hunts Point, the meat markets and the other markets and the other industries, right? But what do we build today? We build nothing. We had Zenith when I was a kid. Remember that TV company? We didn't even drive American cars. We don't build anything. We don't even buy our own suits. As a history teacher, I looked in the 20s, everybody wore a suit, right? We don't even wear suits. We wear the lining of clothing. So let's be real. Let's look at the history. What made America? America was an industrial nation. Yeah. Nobody here, none of these guys are going to propose things like that because they don't think out the box. They're worried about the monies of another candidate. It's impossible to be worried about that when we know that we need jobs. How can we build a technological environment in the Bronx instead of an ice skating rink in Kingsbridge. Do we need that? 7 ice skating rinks in one building? When we could bring industry to the Bronx?